First meeting of the Board of Commissioners. Please rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bonnie, will you please call the roll?
Johnson?
Here.
Mayor?
Here.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Klaus?
Here.
And Cheryl Gore-Follette, Dan Lathrop, and not Sonny Wheelock, Carol Crawford are all excused tonight.
If there are no changes to the minutes, they'll stand approved.
I'll second that.
Okay, that'll come to the first public comment. Bonnie, if you'd please read the rules.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners, which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4, Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized, and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson.
With hearing the rules, anybody like to make public comment? I see none, so we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add or change on the agenda?
Move we approve the agenda as submitted.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That takes us to the consent calendar. Bonnie, would you please read the consent calendar?
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval, is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive and file. Number 1, corrected Board of Commissioner minutes of February 8th. Number 2, resolution regarding revision of Medicare prescription drug bill of 2003, Allegan County. Number 3, Grand Traverse Community Collaborative minutes of February 23rd. B, approvals. Number 1, reappointments to Construction Code Board of Appeals. Number 2, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, agreement.
Does anybody from the commission or staff wish to have anything removed from the consent calendar?
A2.
Okay.
B2 if no one else has any. Just because I got questions, that's all.
Okay. Then could I get a motion to approve this?
Public have any?
Anybody from the public want anything removed from the consent calendar?
Mr. Chairman, seeing none, I would move to approve the consent calendar with the exception of items A2 and B2.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So it brings us to the special order of business, public hearing for revolving loan fund for Birdwell drilling.
Good evening, John Syke, Planning Director for Grand Traverse County. And what I wanted to provide you was an overview of the item that the public hearing will be held for. This is a Community Development Block Grant Revolving Loan Fund application, and it's for a business within Grand Traverse County. And just to give you some background, Grand Traverse County managed its own Community Development Block Grant Revolving Loan Fund for many years. In 2014, that was transferred to Venture North. There's agreement between the county, Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and Venture North for the purpose of that revolving loan fund. It allows for better access, we believe, in terms of getting it into the hands of businesses as they're able to grow and create jobs in our community. So as part of this process, there is a hearing and a resolution. Tonight is the public hearing step in terms of that application that's being presented to you, and then there, just to let you know, at your next meeting on March 15th, there will be a resolution regarding the application. What I'd like to do is have Laura Galbraith from Venture North come up and kind of give you an overview of the project application.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Laura Galbraith. I'm the Executive Director of Venture North. We have a Part 1 application that was distributed to the commissioners in advance. It did describe the project. It is for Berg Well Drilling, and they're seeking a loan in the amount of $105. And this is through the, it's through...
$105,000.
Sorry, $105,000, sorry. That's a big difference.
Typo.
And this is through our, as John had referred to, the Community Development Block Grant Loan Fund for Grand Traverse County. We have about $800,000 that is available to be deployed within the community. We do have to have continuing activity on an annual basis. Michigan Economic Development Corporation says that continuing activity is through their fiscal year, so that is July 1st of 2016 through June 30th of 2017. So this project would qualify us for this fiscal year. If there is no continuing activity, then the funds are then sent back to Lansing to be deployed throughout the rest of the state. The intent of the Community Development Block Grant Loan Fund is to create jobs for low to moderate income individuals within the community. The loan that Berg is applying for will hire 3 full-time positions over the next 2 years, and of which 51% of those positions will be held by low to moderate income individuals. We're using the funds to purchase equipment. The company has an opportunity to expand into a new market, has the opportunity to purchase some equipment that will help them with their expansion. The public has 15 days to comment on this particular project, and it is Grand Traverse County's responsibility to respond to any of the questions and comments with the help of our team at Venture North, and then also of the staff from Berg Well Drilling. I have asked the owner, Doyle Berg Sr., who's here today, to come just to be available if there are any questions during the public hearing. I just wanted to quickly give you an overview of the next steps. We'll need a brief description of the public hearing after the 15-day period. We will ask the County Commission to pass a resolution after that 15-day, and that resolution does need to include the proposed project, the identification of the funding request, the statement that the proposed project is consistent with Grand Traverse County's Community Development Plan, that at least 51% of the beneficiaries of this project will be low and moderate income individuals, and that no project costs will be incurred prior to a formal grant award. We'll need to have the county identify who has authorization to submit the CDBG application, along with the Part 1 application, the Part 2 application, and then any of the, they call them grant agreements, although it is a loan, they are called grant agreements. So with that being said, I am going to ask Mr. Berg to come up just in case there are any questions from the public, and ask that you have the public hearing be held unless there are any questions of me before we move forward.
What is the interest rate and the return time on this loan?
It's a 5-year term, and the interest rate is going to be 3%.
Okay, we'll open up or have the public hearing now, and then,
I think
Mr.
Mr.
Berg
Berg
can
was
come
going to
up.
speak
I think
first,
first.
and then
Okay.
we'll open it up
Okay.
for public hearing, probably.
right. Okay.
Good evening. I'm not responsible for the weather. Not good for well drillers. We had a chance late last year, early in the year, to buy out a company downstate called Lorenzen Well Drilling. They quit doing business December 31st. They have a rig, a tanker truck, and a grouter that they've been using for years, and they wanted to sell it to one source so it didn't break up their equipment. And we've been doing steel wells forever in the Traverse City area. My grandpa started in 1920 in Bel Air, and my dad worked for his dad, me for my dad. Now it's my son and grandson, son-in-law, so I've got 5 generations of Berg well drilling. But the newest drilling is the 5-inch plastic wells, which we have not done because we have different rigs. So this is going to give us a chance to get into that market. We've lost 3 well drillers in Grand Traverse County. Phil's went out a few years ago. Bob's Nelson went out last year. He's in Benzie County. Sweetwater's not drilling. So right now it's probably the big 2 are Clough and B&Z, and we're doing quite a lot also. And so we're going to jump in that market and try to keep some other downstate firms who look at the Traverse City market as a cherry-picking place and try to maintain our local people with our local work here.
Thank you. Now we'll have the public hearing. Or do you have questions for?
Oh, what other types of wells do you do?
We do, up until this point, we've been doing just steel wells. And there's a major difference in the way you pound in a steel well versus drilling out a large hole for a plastic well. It takes totally different equipment, different grouting procedures, so it's a total different operation, the equipment I have right now. We'll still stay in the steel, and we do a lot of repair work. But this gives us a chance to get into that 5-inch plastic market. Yes.
Do you know if there's any lead pipe that needs to be replaced in the county?
Not that I'm aware of. No, I would probably not be able to answer that honestly because we don't put in lead pipe. That would have to be old stuff in the ground. Everything now we put in has to be NSF approved, and there's a lot of rules and regulations of our product. I can't answer that underground situation in Traverse City, honestly.
Okay.
Third time. Public hearing is now open. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? If not, public hearing is now closed.
Mr. Chairman?
Pretty easy, huh?
Oh, I did.
Well, that's fine. Just in an effort to make sure we have full transparency, Doyle has a 5-generation business in this community, and I have a 4-generation business in this community, and we have crossed paths on time or two, so it is part of it, what we do. We've done various things from repairing some of his equipment to, drawing frozen water pipes for him, but I want to make sure everyone is aware of that. I'm certainly not selling him this equipment. There's no gain to me for that, but because of the fact that we have a past business relationship, I at least wanted to mention it. And I don't believe that it's any conflict of interest. Would you agree, Chris?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, and I, just want to add that, if we don't use these funds, they get turned back. So why not use it for local businesses that may succeed at some point if you've been here long enough, right? So, and keep the money here. I mean, if you have competitors from downstate, try to get as much business as you can here because that money does stay locally. So
That's true.
I think it just makes sense.
It's a good fit for them and us both.
And also, I'll say that I've worked with Doyle for a lot of years myself, and anybody who's been in construction around here has probably worked with Doyle.
Pretty much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So
Thank you very much.
now the public hearing is closed. That brings us to the special order of business, Bay Area Transportation.
Good evening. I am Kelly Dunham. I'm the Executive Director of Beta. I want to thank you for allowing us this time to speak with you tonight about our upcoming millage. We have some information to share with you about that, and also just an overview of our current service levels and some of the work that we do to serve this community. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our communications and planning dream team. Eric Lingar, Communications Manager for Beta, and Tyler Bevier is our Transportation Planner. Eric is going to give the presentation tonight, so with that, take it away, Eric.
Thank you. Eric Lingar, I'm the Communications Manager for the Bay Area Transportation Authority. Commissioner Johnson has already seen this presentation because we have started to visit with townships, villages, and we gave this similar presentation to Fife Lake last week. So you'll be an expert already. As Kelly said, on Tuesday, May 2nd, Beta will have a 0.5 mil proposal request on the ballot. Just a little background about who Beta is and what we do and what value we provide to the community. So we have 11 fixed routes that are composed of both city loop routes that operate in and around Traverse City, and then we have fixed routes that go out to the villages as well. And those go out to Kingsley, Williamsburg, Acme, Interlochen, Suttons Bay, Glen Arbor, Empire, so on and so forth, to connect out into the villages. We also have on-demand, which is our dial-a-ride service. So the fixed route is our loop service, but our on-demand service is our dial-a-ride service called Link, which is you call it up and you schedule a ride and we take you to your destination depending on where you're at. We'll connect that way. On average, we provide over 500,000 rides a year. With a fleet of just over 60 vehicles that range in size depending on the need. And just recently we've been expanding our fleet into propane vehicles to have alternative fuel vehicles to provide a lower carbon footprint as well. We service all of Grand Traverse and Leelanau County. We service it's about 900 square miles in total area that we cover, and that's roughly the size of Rhode Island. So it's a big service area to provide transportation to. And our drivers put about 1.9 million miles on the road, which is roughly 4 trips back and forth to the moon, or about 75 times around the earth over and over again. So they put a lot of miles on and cover a lot of area to provide transportation. So what does that look for Grand Traverse County specifically? This is just a quick snapshot of ridership in Grand Traverse County. As you can see, Interlochen, the Chums area, Grand area, Kingsley. Our city loops, of course, have some of our higher ridership. And compared to 2015, we've seen overall about a 7% increase in ridership just in Grand Traverse alone. So how is Beta funded? Basically, we have about 3 different pieces of our pie. About 18% comes from the federal government, from the FTA. We get a chunk of money from there. We also get funding from MDOT. About 38% of our funding comes from the state of Michigan. And then we have 44% come from local sources, which is our local property tax millage, advertising that we sell on our buses and shelters, and then fare box revenue. And of that 44%, about 35% of it comes from the local millage. So we rely a lot on that funding to help maintain and continue our services. So what will the proposal look like? The proposal will be a 0.5 mil request, which is an increase from our 0.3447 mil that we currently have. It will be a 5-year millage rate request starting in 2018 and going till 2022. And just to give you an idea of what the average transit millage is in the state of Michigan, it's about 0.6. So it comes in slightly under that. So how has the region impacted this request and public transportation moving forward? And you guys are familiar with some of these numbers as well. But basically, since 2000, this region has added over 15,000 people. And that's adding roughly another Traverse City in our service area as far as population goes. So our region is growing and the trend is heading that way. The other thing that is influential to the need for public transit is that our region is aging. Grand Traverse County is aging at about a 5% annual rate. That's the highest in the 10-county region in the Northwest Michigan. Leelanau County is one of America's oldest counties, and it's the oldest county in the state of Michigan. About 38% of their residents are 60 or older. And then you can see there's a 22% increase in residents 85 and older in Leelanau County since the last census. So our senior population is growing, and the reliance for them on public transportation options is growing as well. And to put that in perspective, just in 2016 alone, 177,000 rides were provided to seniors or folks with disabilities. These are folks who rely on public transportation as a form of getting around, to getting to health and wellness appointments, grocery shopping, those type of things. So why does Beta need a millage increase? We've already talked about population and growth. The region is growing, aging, things like that. Beta has not requested an increase in over 14 years, and expenses have continued to go up. Costs have continued to go up, and we are continuing to try to maintain and sustain this the transportation service that we have. You guys are also probably aware that federal grant dollars are not as easily available as they were before in the past. Beta, a couple years ago, received a one-time federal grant to help replace a large portion of their fleet. Those fleet vehicles are now starting to age out, and we need funding to be able to continue to support those and continually improve and upgrade our fleet. The other thing that we recently did last year in 2016 is we conducted a community needs assessment that met with different stakeholder groups, county officials, city officials, folks from Munson, NMC, the Disability Network, things like that. And we also conducted a public survey that had close to 700 responses that asked, what does the community want to see from public transportation? What is the vision that you guys would like to see the direction of Beta head? And we'll share the findings from that with you in a moment. So what is the average cost to the homeowner for the millage proposal? So right now, currently, if you own a home that's $200,000 or $100,000 in taxable value, you're paying about $34 a year in property taxes. The proposal would be $50 in annual property taxes, which is roughly about an increase of $16 a year. How does Beta millage rate compare to other taxing entities in our region? Northwestern Michigan College is at 2.9, TBISD also 2.9, the library just under a mill. Beta's proposal would come in at 0.5. How much will the millage raise? About $1.1 million in additional revenue, or $3.55 million in local property tax total. As I mentioned in the community needs assessment, these are some of the additional services that the community has asked us for to help promote and grow public transportation in the region. One of the things that we're hearing is increased frequency of buses, specifically some sort of downtown loop that provides a bus every 15 minutes. Right now inside the city, basically we have a bus that have a bus come by about every 30 minutes, every half hour throughout most of the day, but something that has some increased frequency for people to utilize. We've heard that the community wants park and ride locations and commuter options. As we know, traffic, parking, things like that continue to be a challenge in our region, and the offering of park and ride locations, commuter options for visitors to get into town quicker and using other means than their vehicles are interested in. Technology improvements. Folks are looking for technology improvements to help make using public transportation and riding public transportation easier. Things that we've already rolled out recently, we just integrated Google Transit, which you can pull up Google Maps on your computer or on your smartphone and just type out where you want to go, and it will give you the nearest public transportation option that you can choose from, the timing, how much it'll cost, how long it'll get you there, how long it'll take to get you there. But we want to roll out additional things like that. So online scheduling for some of our Link services, real-time GPS bus tracking to know where that bus is if it's going to come around the corner, and mobile fare payment options so you could pay with your cell phone or some other form of payment that's not cash. We've also heard from our rural community of making improvements to our service model out there. Folks are asking for more door-to-door connections into Traverse City and to other locations. So being able to be picked up at your door, grab a couple people, bring them in for an appointment, shopping, things like that, and then grabbing them and bringing them back out again as far as transportation goes. So improving our rural service model. And then always looking at making fleet and facility improvements to stay lean, green, and environmentally friendly. We will be, as you're part of the presentation here, we will be educating folks, meeting with lots of stakeholder groups, sharing information about the millage as much as we can to anyone who will listen or share time with us. And the election is May 2nd.
Do you have any idea how many people depend on Beta as their only mode of transportation?
As far as their only mode of transportation.
As far as, and I know that's an arbitrary question, I was
Yeah.
kind of, because I know a lot of people that probably use it, that they may not have many other options, so I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to get at is.
Yeah, so I mean, for example, that 177,000 of folks that are disabled or senior, I mean, though that's a chunk of our ridership that's what they rely on us to utilize that. As far as the overall picture or percentage of our 500,000 ridership, I don't know that specific breakout.
Commissioner Wheeler.
Well, a couple things. Number one, we have to remember that when we talk about 500,000 riders or 177,000 disability riders, that may be the same person that has to go. And the other thing is we automatically, or almost every time, end up with 2 riderships every time. They take them to the doctor's office and then they pick them up. So the numbers themselves, we have to remember what the numbers are for. One of the other boards that I sit on in public transportation gets discussed is the Economic Development Corporation. We talk a lot about the fact that trying to get workers to work, get employees to work. We have a real problem, particularly in the outlying areas. Okay, they can take the Beta bus, but they have to be ready to leave by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, they don't get done work till 5:30. In my business, my guys come to work at 8. They start at 8 o'clock. They get done at 5:30 in the afternoon. Well, the Beta bus will drop them off about 7:15 in the morning, and then they have to be ready to leave by 5, or else they can't make the connections. So, that becomes a problem when employers are trying to use it to help their employees to get to work. I recently spoke with Tanya Wildfong from Elmer's, and they've had a lot of discussions about how to improve public transportation or find alternative ways to get their people to work. The guy that lives in Honor, and he's a great employee, and he's good, but all of a sudden his truck breaks down, so he misses 2 weeks worth of work by the time he gets parts and gets his truck back to run, because he can't find another way to get to work. So as we talk about public transportation, we need to try to keep those things in mind a little bit too. There is an absolute desire for businesses to have more access to public transportation for their employees, but right now we simply don't have a system that meets that need. So we need to keep that in our mind when we talk about expansion of public transportation.
Most definitely.
Commissioner Mayor?
What's the life of a bus, and how often do you have to replace them, and where are you in that replacement schedule? Are you behind or are you on time? And the different fuels that you use, I assume you use more than one type of fuel. Where do you purchase it at? Can you tell me about the contract at all for the fuel?
Sure. So As far as life of the fleet, range in lifespan from 7 to 10 years, depending on the vehicle. Currently, 2/3 of our fleet is up for replacement. And when I say it's up for replacement, that means that it has met its useful life per MDOT standards, either through age or miles. We do use a variety of fuels, gasoline, diesel, and now propane, in the 5 vehicles that we have in our fleet and 5 more on the way. We have a propane station on site at our location on the corner of Cass and South Airport. For gasoline and diesel, we have contracts with both Blarney Castle and Schmuckel, and we monitor the daily rate of both of those offerings, and we direct staff to the less expensive option of the day.
Can you buy fuel in advance?
We cannot.
No?
Our utilization is just under what it would need to be in order to
Oh,
buy
I
it
see. You have to
in
have a
advance.
certain volume. Okay. And of all the surrounding counties, which is like the best, most seamless plan when, like Antrim buses bring people our way and we take people to Antrim and Kalkaska or Benzie?
Benzie County would be the
best?
the best partner for transit.
We've recently rolled out some additional regional connections with Benzie Bus to try to bring folks in from Lake Ann, connect people in Interlochen, because we meet up with Benzie Bus at Ricks and Interlochen to bring folks in, looking to help people who are working in Honor to get that regional connection, improve those, the timeliness and the transportation options for folks.
What about school children?
We have a fair number of students that utilize public transit to get to school.
Is it worth having a contract with a particular school system to?
We are not
No.
allowed to have contracts with
No.
school systems.
You did that in Sutton's Bay and all kinds of issues.
That was a problem? Okay.
We just, our charter does not allow us to enter contractual relationships to transport school kids exclusively.
Our seasonal programs too, right now with Ski and Ride that we have right now, we take a lot of kids after school to the different ski club resorts and things like that. So our Ski and Ride program goes to like Mount Holiday, Hickory Hills, Timber Ridge for the Vasa Ski Club, and so they'll utilize public transportation after school to get to their ski clubs and ski practice and things like that.
Does it have to be unofficial, like extracurricular activity related to school, or could it be a sports team, or can you transport a sports team?
The basic premise for our transit system is that it's open to the public. And so all of our routes are open to the public, and it also is based on where the highest needs are. So we know that sometimes those highest needs revolve around student age population, and so we do have regularly scheduled stops at some schools that the students that are unable to use the school transportation can have public transportation as a viable option that way.
Just as long as it's not a contract, it's
As long as it's
perfectly
not
okay, right?
exclusive,
Yeah.
right,
The bus has to be available to the public also.
Okay.
right.
That's the big piece.
My last question is one of these things that I read somewhere in the media locally. They were talking about who would run the train between Ann Arbor and Traverse City, and Beta got mentioned. Is that something you're looking at, is running a railroad?
Well, right now, Beta is the fiscal agent on the study that is being conducted. That study is funded through MDOT, and Beta, being the local transit agency, is the fiscal agent to issue that. I think it's too early to tell who would be operating the train if and when a train comes to Traverse City.
Both of us are too old to worry about it.
He wants to wear a conductor's hat so bad, is what it is.
Well, actually, I did work on the Grand Traverse Dinner Train, and we took people on trips to Williamsburg and to like South Boardman, somewhere down there.
Yeah, we're very interested and excited to see what the study will determine. I think that's going to be very enlightening for all of us in this region.
And when people arrive here via train, when that does happen, they'll need public transportation or some form of transportation when they get into town. So we'll be part of the conversation for sure.
Yes, we'll have a bus waiting.
We'll have something ready.
Oh, what's it like doing business, bringing people from the airport? Is that productive? Or?
I think we could do a better job of transporting people to and from the airport, and we hope to be able to do that in the future.
Because that's one of the things they'll tell us when we're in another venue and they're talking about building a conference center. They'll say that they don't need parking because people don't come with cars. But then they have to get from point A to point B somehow, so perhaps more people will be coming to the airport for a conference in the future.
Yeah, and I think some of those specialized services, whether it's the airport or hotel shuttle type services, things like that, those are all things that we hope to be able to build to further support this community as it grows. We have worked really hard over the last several years to secure a foundation to be able to grow from, and that's where we're at. We're ready to launch. We're just trying to get through some of these fundamentals, and the millage is certainly one of those.
Do you save money on the alternative fuels like propane over? Yeah?
Yeah.
Is it a lot or a little? Or?
It's a significant number between the cost of the fuel and the reduction of maintenance costs.
Has less of an impact on the overall powertrain of the vehicle as well.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your
I really
time.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
We do have a few leave behinds, so we'll pass those out real quick if that's all right, and then we'll get out of your way. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to items removed from the consent calendar. Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, I almost pulled the one the other meeting, but I have issues. I don't have issues with trying to get prescription drug costs controlled. I just have issues with this board making any type of resolution that, to me, is not even worth the paper it's on. And we can't even get our people in Lansing to help us do anything, and we want to pass something to send to Washington. I don't know. I
guess that's the reason it was in the receive and file, because Allegan County sent it to us. We don't plan on taking action on it. We just simply received it and filed it.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't.
Thank you.
I think that you got more power in numbers, and I think if more people get out and write, I think it means more than one group. So that's why I pulled it. So I'm grumpy because I came back from Florida for this weather. So.
We receive resolutions from county boards in different cities and villages all the time, and I can probably only think of 3 or 4 times we've ever acted and sent a similar type resolution to someone. It doesn't happen often.
I mean, it's one thing if it's something that's involving some action force or something, or if you pass this resolution, something X is going to happen. But anyway, enough of my grumbling.
So would you like to?
I will move that we accept, receive and file I put my glasses on, the resolution regarding revision of Medicare prescription bill from Allegan County.
Support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah.
And that brings us to number
B2.
2 on the approvals.
Yep. The question I had about B2, was this an existing contract that we modified?
This is an existing contract. We were in negotiations, and we renegotiated. The summary on page 19 kind of summarizes the changes in terms of what we did. But,
Okay, because
but it was renewal of the contract.
Okay.
It was a negotiation, and takes it from to the end of 2000.
it's into this
18.
year, I think, right?
Or 17.
Okay. I guess I wanted to make sure we weren't just doing contracts for a year again.
Well, this is a short one.
This is a short one, but
Right.
that's a lot of time and effort into a
It would
year
be
contract.
it would be advantageous if we could get a master contract, but we have
I can believe in
13 different
staggering them,
groups
but
we
a
have to
year
agree
is
with.
I've been complaining about a master contract and all the time I've sat in this
Yeah.
chair, because we have 13 separate bargaining units, we have 13 separate contracts, the wording, the finances in them are all different, the holidays are different, the personal days are different. It just drives me nuts.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, we're trying to have a consistency across the board, and that's probably why we're having some problems getting them settled, is because we would like a master contract that's consistent for everybody.
Okay.
Okay, with that said,
Yes, I move that we accept the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employee Agreement.
Support.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That brings us to departmental items. The county-owned real property disposal policy. And I see Jen's not here, so is that something you're going to take, Tom?
Yeah, we've been working on that, and as we were going through the Keystone property, found that there wasn't a policy in place, so we put one in place for your review and recommend that we accept this to have a consistent policy in place that was pretty well explained in terms of what it consisted of and the resolution to support it, and then there was the breakout of I think we've covered everything in it, and I don't know if you want me to go through the whole thing. It's pretty large, but it just gives us a consistent policy on how to dispose of property. The only thing that I was thinking as we went through this that maybe could be dealt with in the future is we're talking about the disposal, and as I was thinking about it, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a policy about accepting, and when we accept it, make sure that it goes off the tax rolls, of course, but we don't have high maintenance costs on top of it, plus losing the tax. So it would be a good idea, possibly, if we do accept property in the future, to have a policy that we'd have some flexibility of selling it off if we need it for maintenance, or that if they gave you the property, they would also give you some way of funding the maintenance of the property, depending on the property. So we're taking care of the back end, and then take care of the front end, which might give you a much better quality of product coming in. Just a thought down the road.
When I read this, I wondered why we weren't including acquisition of property in part of that same policy.
Yeah.
Whether it be property that's donated to the county or property that we were looking to purchase. I think all of that should probably be incorporated into the same policy. Overall, I thought it was a good document. The one thing that I would suggest tonight, though, is that we would table that in that we have 3 commissioners missing this evening. I don't think we should approve this kind of a policy missing nearly half of our board. So
I was talking about this as we were reviewing it, and the idea came to me of having an acquisition as well. Would you like me to include that?
Yeah, I think if you could include something in regard to acquisition of property, and then we could review it at our meeting on the 15th, I think that would be fine. I think acquisition should be included as part of the same policy of disposal of property. But more importantly, I don't believe that we should vote on approving this policy this evening with the absenteeism.
Well, that's fine. As we were going through this, I thought that very same thing, but we'd already got this prepared. But then I thought, well, we're taking care of the back end, but not the front end, so that would be something smart to do.
Because of the fact that we have 2 weeks before we officially meet again, if there's possible to put together just something in regard to acquisition. I don't think it's a big stretch from where we're at here today. As far as the disposal of property, I think it's a pretty easy thing to repeat the negative of that and include one policy that has to do with the acquisition and disposal of county property.
Yep, be fine.
Anybody else?
Chris, do we need a motion to table, or we?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we table the issue of acquisition or disposal of county property for the evening until our March 15th meeting.
I support that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I do have a question I want to bring up on that.
Oh,
if I can.
that's fine. Yeah, sorry.
Tom, on page 91 in our packet, under the real property disposal guidelines, under B, where it has proposals should include concept plan for any intended development, qualifications, experience of the proposer, developer, a business plan for the project. Why would we have that? That tells me that we're going to be critical of who buys the property that we may be selling, and I think that our townships will have enough zoning regulations on anything that's there that, I mean, we don't want to make it more cumbersome.
Well, it's just a criteria. Really, we boilerplated this from
okay.
others, in terms of their standards, and it would be up to the board if they thought it was overkill, we're being too rigid, that you could eliminate that and just put proposal should include a concept plan for intended development, I suppose.
Or, I mean, if I ever buy a piece of property,
Right.
the seller never asks what I'm going to do with it,
But the seller's not the government.
I understand that, but it's also, we're out looking for somebody to purchase the property. We're not.
What you're saying is that we're making it more difficult than is necessary.
That's how I see it.
Well, we can take a look at that
can talk about it.
and come back with maybe a less stringent approach for consideration, and can either stick with this one or maybe an option that you might want to consider.
Okay.
I don't know, we could...
I think I would be interested to know whether they were putting housing there, or whether they're putting a stamping plant there, just because of how it will affect the neighborhood. But I don't know that I need a detailed business plan and a worked out agreement of what they're going to do on the property.
Well, and any of the townships, their zoning would take care of that it would already be taken care of. I would think, but.
It also might help them out if we had some of that language where we knew ahead of time, if we said, that's not a good fit. Like with the Keystone property, with the dark sky stuff, that's something else for them to think about, But I know about the overreaching of government and all this other stuff.
And the dark sky stuff at Garfield Township, they've got a lighting ordinance.
Yeah.
Well, I think I understand what you're saying is you'd like to make us a little easier to do business with if we wanted to sell assets, and you still want some scrutiny, but you don't want it to be as extreme or as drilled down as this, because it discourages people. Is that what you're saying? Maybe we can come up with something that's a little more realistic? Is that?
Yeah, I guess so. Realistic for me would be nothing at all.
I think bring it back to the other, when everybody's here, because like I said, I don't have a problem with the wording like it is personally, but,
Okay.
I don't know. I won't be here forever either. So.
Right.
Well, you could eliminate most of that as an option, but I'll take a look at it and see if there's another way of wording it that gives us some criteria that makes sure that we're not getting the wrong kind of development in, and or maybe we put something as simple as compliance with township ordinances too, something like that. That may be a solution as well. So we'll take a look at that.
Which is just a given.
Yeah,
and that's just a given, so but we can say it.
We have to remember land use is truly under the control of the township, not under the control of the county.
So we can take a look at that, and maybe that would be enough to justify a selection criteria that you wouldn't worry about something coming you don't want.
Right.
Okay, we'll take a look at that.
Okay. That brings us to unfinished business. Update from ad hoc committee regarding administrator search.
Yeah, well,
Go ahead, Tom.
Cheryl's missing, but Sonny and I are part of that. I have a rough draft of the request for proposals, and I think the earliest that we could probably release it would be maybe around March 10th. And I took some template or boilerplate parts to design that proposal. I sent copies to Sonny and to Cheryl just this afternoon, actually, so there wasn't time to look at that. But I think maybe the next step is to meet with Chris or Bob, just to make sure that it meets the legal requirements before publicizing it. But I don't think it would be hard to get that approved in a short amount of time. So I'd say the earliest might be March 10th.
Yeah, or we may even
Yeah.
actually want to hold it until after the 15th and put it on the agenda and let commissioners all read it and weigh in on it before we send it out.
Okay.
Basically, what we did is we, each one of us, like everybody else in the world today, we Google searched different executive search firms, and then each one of us, by our own individual methods, tried to assess, which ones were good. I found a couple that, had great reviews from being used throughout the country, which was a good thing for me. I wanted to see someone with some national extension, if you will. And, we put together some, like Tom said, some boilerplate type things. These are the things that we're going to ask a search firm to do. And then we included with that the job description of the administrator and a salary range. And that needs to go into the packet. And we'll find a couple different things from reading enough information about how these companies work. Some of them will actually base their fee based on a percentage of what that position's salary is. Some of them do a flat rate. I personally kind of like the flat rate idea better, but both options are out there and they're being thrown around. We just want to make sure, and obviously we've been contacted, at least I have, and I think Tom and Cheryl have too, by some local companies that would like to participate in the search. Certainly submit a proposal, but, I want to make sure that we find a company that can find us an administrator that's going to meet the needs of this community for a while. I keep saying I want an administrator that'll be here 10 years, knowing very well that the average administrator is about 6 to 8 years throughout the country. So, if we can get 10 years, we're doing very well. But I think it's just important that we all have an opportunity to look at, okay, these are the search firms that we've defined, and I would recommend that we send to, I think we come up with 3 or 4 that we were specifically highlighting that we wanted to send it to.
Well, there's at least 3.
And then there were some others that, may or may not, want to bid, but you don't want to send this thing out. I read a proposal from one company that said that they post all sites on Craigslist. Well, if I want to post an executive search on Craigslist, I'm pretty sure we can handle that. The idea that is the media by which they would post it out there, doesn't score real high in my choices. But mostly it's just the idea of, these are things that we want this firm to do, and it included, coming here, meeting with commissioners, meeting with departments, overviewing our community, knowing a little bit about our community. And, that's an important piece because we have to make sure that the person that they're selecting or recruiting to be our administrator is the person that we want. Because this is the one position that the county board does, is they hire the administrator. And this is our job to make sure that we get the right administrator here to serve our community for a while. So, I don't have anything else unless you had anything.
Yeah, I would say that we should put on the agenda that copies will be in the packet for every commissioner to look at.
At the 15th.
For the 15th. And, we can still call it a rough draft at that point in case people want to make changes. Then once it's approved, circulate it or advertise it as a open proposal for about 21 days on the short side.
The one company that I talked to out of Minnesota, not that we're trying to kick you out the door or anything, Tom, said we can be done with this by the end of July. Yeah. If we choose to. If we want to fast track it, they can do a nationwide search and have us as many as a dozen candidates in here, and we can have opportunity. They will come here and help us with the interviews if we choose to. All of those services that you ask them to provide comes with a price tag. So you need to understand that too. Then that's why it's important to make sure that we are pretty specific in our RFP about what we're asking them to do, so as that we make sure that when we look at the dollar amount at the end of the day, that we're comparing apples to apples.
Yeah, I'd be careful if you're going to ask them to negotiate the salary that you don't have a fixed fee.
Well, the important thing is, you know, I think that salary range, you know, needs to be included in with the job description. So, you know, someone that applies for the job isn't going to come here and say, oh, by the way, I need $250,000 or I'm not coming, you know. And we can't expect that we're going to find somebody that's going to come in here and do it for $50,000 either.
Did you ever find out what happened to the Park Group? Are they just gone?
You know, I've made multiple attempts to reach
I
out to
think they're
them,
just
and I've
gone.
never got any feedback. They're still listed online.
Really? Still
But
listed?
they do not come back. I get no response. You know, they were a well-established company when we dealt with them in 2001, but that's
Oh, yeah.
a long time ago. You know,
Yeah,
you know, if the senior partners in 2001 are probably long since seniored.
That's what I thought, because I used them 5 different times, but they were in their late 50s to early 60s, and that was 15, 16 years ago. So I kind of, and I think it was a small, like 2-3 person office, so they either were bought out by somebody else or just went out of business. So. But they were good. They did a nice job. So.
And I think there's absolutely other companies out there that will do that kind of service for us and do a good job for us.
There's plenty out there.
No question in that, and the ones that we individually looked at.
Okay, thank you. The strategic plan update. Tom.
Well, I think the question was covered in the February 24th memo in terms of everything. I don't know if I could add anything to that. And then we have the timeline for what happens next. So unless there's any questions on the actual memo itself, I think we should have covered those questions.
Yeah, I think the strategic plan that was outlined is very good, and I think the highlighted piece of that is the fact that now departments and staff have to develop a work plan to achieve those goals. You know, and that's what we're working on now, I believe. And hopefully we'll see the beginnings of those work plans fairly soon.
All right. We're on to new business. There's no new business. Second public comment.
Good evening. My name is Brenda DeKuyper, 5942 Vance Road, Grand. I'm here to talk about that infamous Keystone property that you were discussing. The idea of the project of an indoor sports complex is not dead, as some may have thought. The idea is continuing, and the process is continuing. It's because of the size of this project, it's not something that will be happening overnight. There are many people that are going to be part of this project because of the size of it and what we are looking to do with it. Another part is that also need to have different things checked within the township to see if they will fall within the zoning ordinance or whether or not we would be able to do a zoning amendment because of the size of the building that we're looking at, more so the height of the building. The idea is having a field house structure which would house football, soccer, lacrosse, rugby, across the board, variety of different field sports. Another side of the project would also be for basketball courts, volleyball courts, and the roller derby is also looking to be involved in that part. So in this project, we're looking at, we would have the opportunity to bring income into the county from a variety of different areas, as far as having tournaments, baseball, because that's another indoor field sport that would be covered here, baseball, softball, looking at having different leagues that would take place during the winter. Then we would be able to bring teams from downstate, would be able to come up here in the wintertime when the hotels are available and at a cheaper rate, and also allowing for our restaurants during their downtime to be able to have income because of having this availability of this project. I'm asking that you might consider holding off on the possibility of the sale of that piece of land, because in The thought of this project would be that we would team up with the county and that it would be a lease. So it would be income for that property for the county. The only way that this project will succeed that I can foresee, and in talking with others that have looked at projects like this, is that it can remain tax exempt. If the land remains within the county, that will help to do that. As a former treasurer, I know the taxes on the size of a building like this would kill the project. It would not be able to be sustainable if the taxes were going to have to be on that. So I'm asking that the county might think about this. If you would like me to come in and speak with, several of you individually, I would love to be able to do that because, as I said, there are many interested people in this project. I am working on a business plan at this time for it, but because of there's being so many different entities, I have to meet individually with basketball to find out, okay, what kind of revenue they're talking, type of hours, and...
Thanks, Brenda.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner reports.
Just me. I passed out a history lesson. Natural gas contract. I have personally negotiated my natural gas contract for our business since late 2006. In 2009, I got Danny Brown, the former facilities director, to sign on behalf of the county. The sheet that I passed out to you tonight, just basically, this is my history number, but the number that the county pays per 1,000 cubic feet is exactly the same as I do. In 2009, the average cost of natural gas was $8.30 a 1,000 cubic feet. When we signed on behalf of the county in February of 2009, we were paying $5.99 per cubic foot. That was a significant savings. Each year, you can see, I've got them all listed there. As you can tell, I'm a little diligent about this. I make me multiple offers every year before I sign the contract, because pretty much every year it saved me money. And if it saves a nickel, that's significant money. Grand Traverse County, well, just bring it on down. In 2014, it's the only year we ever signed a multi-year contract. The price of natural gas was very, very volatile in the spring of 2014, late winter, February and March. It was up and down everywhere, as you can see by the offers that were made. And the only way we could lock it into what I believed was a reasonable fee was to lock a 3-year contract. Now, that being said, late in 2015, early in 2016, the price of natural gas took a significant drop all the way across the nation. I went back to Interstate Gas, who is our vendor, and tried to get them to reopen and negotiate that contract. I met with Tom at the time. There was a penalty cost to do that, and the only way they would do that is if we locked in 2017 at the price that it was at right then. And I did the math, and at least in my business it made no sense, and I can't believe if it didn't make sense when you use 2.5 million feet that I do, it probably didn't make sense for the county either. So we didn't do it. In 2014, we did sign the contract at $4.82 for 36 months. And I can tell you that it's down. The current DTE price, I believe, is $3.54. So we are paying a little bit more right now than we would have been if we had rode the bubble. The problem with the variable rates is, and Bob can tell you about energy costs. When in the wintertime, when the demand is high, the price of natural gas goes right up here. In the summertime, when the demand is low, it drops down in the spring. What we have in today's market is that a lot of people speculated last fall, bought a lot of natural gas with the idea we were going to have a big winter. And right now, there's billions of cubic feet of natural gas in surplus all the way across the country. And there's companies now that bought that natural gas last fall that are trying to dump it back on the market, which seems to make sense, other than the fact when I checked the IMAX today, yesterday, the price of natural gas went up 10 cents. Today it went down 4. So that gives you an idea about how volatile this market is and how hard it is to speculate what that number is going to be. The offer on the 22nd of February was $3.49. Now keep in mind that we signed in 2014 at $4.82. If we were to sign that $3.49 number, we would save the county $27,930 over what we paid in 2016 for natural gas usage for 2017. We use about 21 million cubic feet, amounts to about $140,000 of our budget, which a $27,000 savings is a 20% saving, and if I can figure out some way to find a single line item that I can save 20%, that's a pretty good deal. You know, I believe, and that there's no education to this other than having kicked the can down the road and around the block a couple times. I believe that natural gas price will come before the end of March when our contract expires. I believe that natural gas contract number will come down to $3.25, something close to that. The IMAX, like I said, it was up 10 cents yesterday, it's down 4 cents today. But you have to remember, when you look at the IMAX cost for natural gas, you have to add somewhere between 50 and 80 cents based on distribution and fees that are collected. You know, so even though when we're signed at $3.49 or whatever, we still pay DTE transportation costs because we use the DTE pipes to get them to us. But we don't pay distribution costs and we don't pay fees. IGS has all of that in. The county contracted a energy firm called Tenergy to audit our county utility usage. And just in a kind of an unsolicited comment in discussion with them last week, Marty was saying we were looking at that and talking about different firms, and Tenergy told them that the benchmark to whether you're getting a good deal for natural gas is interstate gas. So obviously we found the right supplier a long time ago, and we've got a good relationship with them. I spoke to him today. In the contract, if our contract that's in place right now expires the 31st of March, if we do not renew that contract, we will go on a month-to-month fee. That month-to-month fee will be based on the IMAX plus 80 cents. So that means today it would have been about $3.46 today. But, where it's going to be next month or in August is hard to say. So, my suggestion, I know Jen has concerns because she thinks we should have put this out for an RFP, and I guess that's on me. I've done this a long time, and I never even thought about it until, okay, here we are in the middle of February, and I need to start getting Jacob on the phone about once a week and find out where my natural gas number is going to be. But the idea of a fixed price for your natural gas for a year is a whole lot easier to budget. The county situation is a lot different than mine personally, because my natural gas usage is pretty much consistent because most of my natural gas goes in my powder coat oven, and it's pretty consistent whether it's in July or whether it's in January. There's not a whole lot of difference in how much I use. The county uses a lot more in the wintertime than they do in the summer. So their usages are different. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, we use about 21, on behalf of the county, we use about 21 million cubic feet of gas. It costs us about $140,000. If we were to sign this contract at $3.49, we would save $27,930 over what we spent last year. That's a significant savings. My suggestion, and obviously with not everybody here tonight, I'm not in a position to ask anyone or to let us continue and sign a contract on your behalf. I guarantee you I will continue to track this at least once a week. And by the time we meet on the 15th, I am probably going to ask the county board to authorize Tom and I to negotiate a contract for Grand Traverse County for 2017 and sign that contract. Because, you know, just like I said, it went up 10 cents yesterday, dropped 4 cents today. It could drop 20 cents tomorrow, and if all of a sudden it drops to $3.25 tomorrow, I'd like to be able to sign that contract because I think it's a real number. You know, I told Tom and Jen the other day, I'll guarantee you, if he calls me next week and tells me the number is $3.25, I'm going to sign mine. But that's an educated guess, you know. And you can tell from the history, you know, there are a couple years that I actually ended up paying a little more than I wanted to than some of the offers that were early. But, you know, there's other years that waiting that extra couple weeks has saved me a nickel, you know, and it saves a lot of money.
Mr. Chairman, we had a pretty in-depth discussion a day or two ago on this, and would it make any sense to authorize Commissioner Wheelock to sign it if it went to 3.25 and lock it in for 12 months? Or not? Just throwing that out for thought. You're not going to get any better than that.
How does this fall into our bidding process and everything? I mean,
it's never been considered part of the process because you know how that whole deregulation thing came down. 2005, 2006, deregulation came through and allowed utilities to bid into other areas. You know, not unlike the discussion we had where Cherryland Electric was able to provide power to the Traverse City West High School, even though it's set smack dab in the middle of a consumer's district. But, you know, but it was a process, and I apologize, you know, if I should have brought this to you sooner, so as that we could have put together an RFP. The one thing that I can tell you from reading natural gas contracts is you need to really look real close at them to make sure all of the distribution costs and the fees are in there.
That's right.
Because Danny and I met with some people here a while back that they had just a great price. Well, then you start adding in, you know, 8 cents for distribution. Well, then all of a sudden they're back at the same number. The other thing that we ran into with a couple of the companies that came in, and we have over the years talked with other companies that have had interest, they would say, okay, Grand Traverse County, your average usage is 20,500,000. Okay, they'll lock you in for 20,500,000. You get a cold winter and you need 23 million cubic feet, you pay whatever the market price is for that other 2 million feet.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's only probably a couple players at this level.
At this level.
And I guess as long as you check with them, I want to make sure it looks good, the optics of it are good. I mean, what you're talking about downstate a couple of years ago, residential, there were some people that went that route, said, hey, if this is cheap, and their bills actually doubled and tripled.
Well, yeah, because they didn't know about the distribution fee.
So,
somebody calls up and says, we're going to sell you natural gas for so much $1,000, but they didn't understand distribution costs.
We agreed as a group on a couple of things. One, that the interstate gas supply was the benchmark that the others worked off of, and they were the best one to go with. So Commissioner Wheelock had gotten the agreements in the past with them. So I don't think we're going to find anybody that's more reputable in the industry than that. We also thought that we weren't going to get better than that 3.25 if that came in. At least for 12 months you get it. But there was concerns about not going out for an RFP. Time-wise, it didn't work out that way, but we agreed that we would start the process earlier next time so that we would go out for an RFP and have adequate time to do it. But it was more prudent to move quickly on this while it was low and to lock it in for 12 months.
Yeah, at this point, I would never, because of the volatility, I would never suggest a multi-year contract. I just would, because the price.
So my point was, if it does go down to the 3.25, I wouldn't want to lose out for that and so I would think we could consider giving Commissioner Wheelock the authority to sign it if it got down to that point for 12 months and lock that low price in at that low price compared to what we're paying based on the amount that we use. We're looking, I think, at a 23% savings from the year before.
If it drops to $325, we'll save $32,970 based on a round number of 21 million feet, which is 23.5% cheaper than it was last year.
So, I mean, it's...
It'd be foolish not to do it.
If the worst thing you're going to do is save 23%, that's not bad, you know, so...
Did you have something, Chris, that you wanted to?
No.
Oh, you look like you were ready to. I guess I know we don't have time for an RFP, but I guess would it be too cumbersome to say, look, Interstate said this, can we go to, one of the other big players and say?
What I would suggest, because of the fact that we already have Tenergy under contract,
yeah,
let's if we get an offer from Interstate, let's call Tenergy and say, look, this is where we're at. Do you believe that this is a good number? We have them under a contract, so we should be able to at least ask that question.
As long as it's apples to apples.
Yeah.
Right.
No
Well,
hidden surprises.
Exactly.
That's the tough piece.
Yeah.
That is the tough piece, and that's...
Well, it'd have to be, reputable, because it's got a history.
It does, and like I said, there are companies that have came here, and Danny and I have met with them over the years, and on behalf of the county, and at the end of the day, you walk out of there and think, they can't do what they just sat there and told you they can do. There's no possible way.
Well, I brought Tenergy in to do utility audits, and they've saved us around $40,000 to $50,000. So our experience with them has been good, but not in this area before. But it wouldn't hurt to go back and ask them. I just would want I wouldn't want to lose the opportunity. If we can get a 23% savings, I think that's pretty good. And if we can lock that in for 12 months, I think that's good. And so if Commissioner Wheelock comes across that opportunity, I would just like to give him the opportunity to sign that up and lock that in, is all I'm saying. If it doesn't come at that, then we bring it back on the 15th for discussion.
Yeah, and I will talk, like I said, I will be talking with Jacob, every 2 or 3 days from now until I sign my contract at the end of the month.
So are you needing a motion tonight, or you wanting to do it on the 15th?
I really would like a motion on the 15th.
Okay.
I guess what I'd like to see is maybe a little head nodding that everyone kind of understands what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And that, if next Thursday he calls and says the price is $325, I'm probably going to sign that, and I'm going to be on the phone with Tom to sign it, and then we're going to come back and tell you after the fact. Because I don't think it's going to go no lower than that.
We could always sign it contingent upon board approval on the 15th.
Absolutely, we can do that. We can always sign it because of the fact that the contract doesn't in fact expire until the 30th of the month, or the 31st of the month. Yeah. We could always sign that contract and then come back and ask the board for authorization for that contract, and if not, we'll pull it, because it doesn't expire till the end of the month. But, it was just, what I wanted to make sure tonight, and again, I apologize, I probably should have brought this to you a month ago. It just wasn't on my radar until middle of February when I started talking about my natural gas contract. So.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd agree to put it on the agenda for the meeting of the 15th. But, Chris, what's our normal turnaround time from when we first come up with an idea to having an RFP to issuing it to getting an answer? Is it the shortest time, like a month, or?
Yeah, probably a month is moving quick.
The hardest part of putting together an RFP like this is making
the commodity moving
the
too.
Commodities, they're so volatile, and they're so complicated to read the contracts as far as which distribution costs are in there, and what your transportation fees are, what your sale fees are, and it's when you're buying natural gas off the IMAX and you're paying fees to half a dozen brokers before you actually get the gas to your wall, it can get real complicated.
I think it was nice that Commissioner Wheelock has taken this on over the years. It's not an easy process, so I think I know you're doing it for your own business, but being that he's got that basis to start from, it was nice of him to help on the other end, too.
When we started this, we were assuming, based on the current market, and I haven't tracked the current the regular DTE market up and down over the last 4 or 5 years, just because it takes a lot of time and I haven't done it. But for the first 3 or 4 years that we were signing on behalf of the county, we were saving about $75,000 a year by having a fixed contract compared to riding the roller coaster.
Yeah.
Any other commissioner reports? With that, then, the notices, March 16th, there's a board basics training. On March 22nd, attorney-client update regarding collective bargaining.
Yeah, pretty cool.
And on March 29th, study session regarding the pension debt discussion. Yes, Tom?
Yeah, regarding March 29th, that's the fifth Wednesday. Normally, we have our study sessions on the second and fourth Wednesdays. It's also the last day of the Michigan Association of Counties meeting in Lansing, which Carol, the chair, and I are going to be attending. So the meetings end around noon or so. And on a weather day like today, it reminds me of how hard it would be to race back, because I'll be in a car. So my proposal is to move it to April 12th, which is the first study session of the month of April, and to make sure that we include in the pension debt discussion that we're going to talk about the deductions that are being taken from the employees currently, which we talked about at our last meeting, because we were going to roll that into the pension debt discussion. So I just want to make sure we don't get off track on that. Is that right, that we were going to include that?
That was my understanding. That
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, my only concern, I guess, is at the last few meetings, well, we got to do this now, and, now we're moving it.
I think we've told large groups of people that discussion is going to be on March 29th. I think we should have that meeting on March 29th.
I thought I needed to mention it, though, because...
And it's going to be good weather. You guys will be back by then.
It should be good weather by then.
Yeah.
So.
Just remember, March came in like a lion, it's got to go out like a lamb,
That's right.
That's what my grandmother always said.
Don't get any speeding tickets.
So, I mean, you can bring that up at the next meeting with everybody here to see, but...
Yeah, I think Carol was pretty neutral on that. She intends to make it back, as I would intend to, but after looking at today's weather, it does remind me that would be a struggle to get back. And if we're paying to go to a conference...
If you'd approve my video conferencing.
If we're paying to go to a conference, we shouldn't just, leave early if we've already paid the registration, so...
Right. Do we have any need for a closed session?
No, we do not.
Okay. We're adjourned.
Good job. I'll go home now.
Let's go make snow angels.
Good job, Ron.